Anyway, what we got here is we got another Marlin Slammer, and this thing was sort of passed over by your guitarist, your rhythm guitarist in your band, to you, and said, "Can you do something with it?" And my thought was, since you brought it over, we could do here's a bunch of spare parts. Let's see what's the best we can make it play
isn't it?
in the shortest amount of time we've got. So this will be solid wood, not ply.
Yeah.
Unusually, this neck appears to be, apart from being covered by what looks like the aftermath of a murder scene, crime scene, it's got some incredible old gunk on here. But I won't even begin to think about removing it. But these necks, it's incredibly rare for these to be untwisted and unbowed after all this time. So the fact that it's still going is quite amazing. Under here, you'll find some East German hardware, right, which I'll take off and show you. It's really interesting stuff. It doesn't look like, and you can tell because look, these aren't like anything you've ever seen before.
That's right.
My experience of the pickups on these is they're horrible, but you know, I think I just went and chucked away a load of single coils that I was never going to use. So I don't think I've got any spares, but you know, we'll do with what we can.
We'll leave them on there for now then.
Horrible bridge,
but
it looks good. It looks even big and thick, chunky metal, but actually it's, let's show it over there. It's a great big thing, but it's just, you take it out, it floats away out of your hands. It's like this aluminium, helium aluminium. Somebody's refinished it in lovely brown, but what the heck. So my view is we can give it some new tuners, we can polish the strings, the frets, we can have a look under the cover, we can replace all of these, leave the bridge in place, but as long as these aren't too narrow, these tend to be a bit narrow, but we can replace all those, and we could probably fudge some things to fit on here, but they'll kind of be probably a once only fitting. But we might get away with possibly a bit of milliput or something that's fairly slow drying, but it wouldn't be impossible to break off if you wanted to get rid of them in the future. The alternative is to replace all those pots and put regular size. Now I've got loads of mini pots which might do better than that. You know, I don't mind throwing some of those on. But so what I've done is I've set out a bunch of things. Here's some nuts, here's a couple of spare sets of tuners, here's some aged looking knobs, here's a set of strings that somebody donated to me. They're not going to be brilliant, but you know, we're doing this on the cheap.
That's right.
What I noticed about this is way down, it's way under, the neck has to be shimmed. I don't know how this ever actually played in its original configuration, because I don't actually think you would struggle to get down there. So it will need a shim. We might as well chuck one in, for which I've cut a couple of bits of copper. This is actually quite a thick bit of copper, but it may be a combination of smaller bits. I'm just going to flatten that out, and we'll cut it to shape in a minute. But I thought it would be fun to see, you know, what's the shortest, shortest distance. Yeah. Well, we've got things to talk about anyway while we're doing this, which includes a little deputizing, we call it deputizing guitar playing for that I'm going to do hopefully on your upcoming gig in St Ives.
St Ives, yeah.
Down in the seaside city of St Ives. Okay, let's just pull things off, shall we?
Cool.
So I've printed out all of those. I mean, by the way, you can keep those on, or we could go with Squire set. These are Squire Koreans actually. But, you know, it depends whether you want to keep the original look. I mean, they're neither here nor there. They're not particularly,
not really, are they?
Not particularly good or bad, but they're not. They wouldn't be my sort of urgent priority. Actually, you know what? Brains. Let's just get something. Let's rewind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these old strings while they're on, and I'm going to slack them off a bit, and I'm going to use them as markers while we just tweak and shim the neck. Yeah. Obviously we're going to ditch that huge nut and put something in that holds this down at a better height. But the thing probably to do here is to slack these all off a bit, and then we'll put a capo on here. We'll undo the neck, take it off with these still attached, shim it, and do it all that way. Yes, so St Ives, I've printed out all the songs. I did a check through, and I know probably 6 or 7 straight off.
Yeah.
Anyway, out of that lot, and I think when I started the other day, it was probably 6 or 7 I didn't know at all, or 5 or 6 I didn't know, and then the remainder bulk was stuff I kind of knew I'd heard of, but I hadn't played before. Yeah. So what I've done is I've just printed out the Ultimate Guitar stuff for all of them, and I've just been going through a couple of nights listening to reminding myself of what they are and stuff. So my thought straight away is, you know, you and I have played together before. So, and judging by what I saw the other day of you playing, based on what I saw the other day, I kind of assumed that.
Well done, Claire. Sugar, isn't it?
No.
Yeah. But
cheers.
Blimey.
Did you eat lunch yet? Did you eat lunch yet?
Mm.
You did?
Mm.
Do you want some more?
No, I'm absolutely
fine,
thank you.
Do you want me to make you ploughmans?
Actually not right now, thanks.
I can feel your bites.
I don't, I've just been bitten by a horsefly. We're on camera, by the
way.
Sorry. That's right, you can fondle my horsefly bites as much as you like. Right, now, we don't really have a lot of choice here. This thing is glued onto there, effectively. So I'm going to just try and encourage it to let go. It's doing it. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Okay, put that out of the way. Yeah, so based on watching you guys play the other night, oh lordy. What has someone done? Has he glued this permanently in place? You don't know, do you?
Don't know. We don't know anything about the history of this thing.
Right. If he has, then there's nothing we can do really to save the action on here. Rewind, start again. Before I go and start hitting it really hard with the hammer, let's just try the one thing we can do before we go any further. See, the conversation about bands disappears. It's like when you've got kids, you know, you start talking to people and then before you know it, you've run out. You can't actually finish a sentence. And what I'm also going to do is get one of these here things. I'm just going to pull this thing back out of the way of the. No, maybe I'm not going to do that. Right. Okay, out of the way of that. Why was I doing? Oh yes, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, so talking about the playing stuff, I listened when we were there the other day watching you play. What I realised was that you know, we play together, and I would default to you doing all the lead, and unless there's something absolutely that Barry would do that you need me to do, in which case we have to be very specific about that. But we might just get away with that. It looked a million times worse before because you got this high action down here, but now with that clamped off, you know, prior to a better nut being fitted, we could just about get away with this.
I reckon we just go
on the floor. Yeah. Okay, let's put that back on. Yeah. It might well have been glued. Somebody may have said, right, I'm going to make sure this never comes off again, and glued it back on. But yeah, so I mean, does that sound, first of all?
Well, I've written out another list with comments as to what we need to discuss, like Teenage Kicks. You're all right for the 2 little solos on that. Yeah.
There's 3 when we do it with Ian and that, isn't it? But that's what I need to know, how many it is.
Yeah, we do it as per recording. Okay. Same with song 2 from Blur.
Right, which I don't know very well.
No, but there's the clean part on that you can do as well, like the intro part of that. It's easy enough. What else was that? 3 things I had to say.
Amongst our 3 things. Right. So just back to this. Let's get rid of this other hindrance at this end, which is this monstrous nut. We'll go and customize something that will fit in there, but won't end up being a mile high action. There's no. I don't think it's worth cutting this down. We could do, but it's probably plastic anyway.
It's plastic.
So, ciao. It's been quite well stuck down. It's not inside a slot or anything, so it's just plenty of goo. Right, and that's a bit of glue that's set up inside there. I think I'll chuck that. But you know what? Oddly enough, that might be worth keeping in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, there are certain nuts that they have to be a certain height, and Epiphone tends to be one of them. And a lot of the regular replacement nuts that I buy are just they're just slightly too low as starters, which is annoying. So you're starting from having to either custom build one or boost the one you've got. Okay, this probably could do with a bit of tweaking. It's worth keeping the strings on, even though it's a bit of a faff now. The reason I tend to try and keep the strings on just at this point is because they're sort of important for putting the nut back on and cutting the new slots. So yeah, so that was sort of conventional way we've played it before, and then you tell me a couple of the things that Barry would have done. It didn't sound like there's anything that was that I couldn't learn in time. Just a matter of getting familiar with them. And also, even if I were at any point to get even a little bit lost, I know that you've kind of got the structure of it, and
well, that's right.
You can sort of cover the space if absolutely
definitely.
At the worst place.
Definitely.
But I've got them all printed out, and the plan would be to practice and then try. Hopefully, God, I don't know what you put in there. But hopefully then get over and do a rehearsal with you at some point over in Weybridge. There's a lot of stickiness in this, whatever they've used. Does that look like clagged up, or is it a clean? I can't see from this side. Will I get something? Let's try. I suppose we could try. Let's just see how something sits up against it. Yeah, it is a bit. It's a bit on the grunge side, isn't it? It's sticky stuff.
Yeah,
that's weird. Feel it peeling off.
There you go.
Delicious. We went to a local council meeting, parish council meeting the other day, because there's a whole load of intrigue going on in this village about some developers who are cruising in, cruising in to develop on green fields, and everybody's getting kind of freaked out, as quite rightly you'd expect. And well, one of the things on the agenda while we were there was there was a woman from a rural broadband initiative company. It's a commercial company. I think it's called Airband or something. And they're quite smart because I don't know quite how they work, but they see that people like us don't have decent broadband down here, so they come in with a sort of line of sight based broadband provision. And I think even I think their plan was to do something by putting up a thing on top of the church steeple, that kind of thing. Anyway, so the sort of promise is, well, if you want, you possibly get up to 40 megabits or something per second, and that's kind of, you could hear the gasps in the hall, because most people in the village are like us. We're lucky if we get 1 megabit up and about a 0.1 down, which is really lousy. So it'd be interesting, because then we were just saying, God, I wouldn't have to go to Plymouth to upload my videos, and I can actually upload stuff every day instead of waiting to the end of the month to go and bother a friend to use their broadband. Right, let's have a feel. Well, that's kind of close enough to the fit anyway. I don't know about the height part of it. If this had been a Strat slot, I would have put in an adjustable one, homemade adjustable one. But it's obviously it's more of a Les Paul type of slot. So that, I think that will sit fine. Let's look at the width. I'll probably use something like that. It's just a tiny. That's actually not bad. And then I'll cut down from underside. So I'll start with that one.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Put that sharp thing out of the way. So the question becomes, where does it sit when we load it up, and how much roughly we're going to take down. And I always prefer to try and take down to an approximate amount, and then I aim to try and take down the fine tunings obviously from above, rather than trying to do it from underneath, because pretty much every time, no matter how carefully I measure it, if you try and do it from the bottom and then in the hope that you'll just pop it in and it will be perfect, you end up overcutting to get it, because you just can't get that much accuracy. Now let's just have a feel about whether it sits any tidier in there. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, a bit overhang depending on where we want the strings to fall. We can just push it about a bit. I mean, it's dead central, that wouldn't be bad at all. Okay, so height wise we are at eyeball, we're about 3mm. So there's quite a lot to take off there. We're about 2. Let's get my little gauge which has run off. It's in the house, isn't it? Let's use the other one. Isn't quite as good. So millimeters on here, 2 point. Come on, where's the mark? 2.5. It's almost on 2.5. Right, call it 2.5, and then on this side, the lighting is all wrong. They're looking at 1.75. Let's write it down. 2.5, 1.75, and we want 0.3 on all ways, so safely we should be able to take 2 off there and 1.4 off there. Yeah, that's about right. So we'll do that bit. I mean, you know, if that's a little close to the bone, then we can sort of we can leave the numbers there, and we can just go conservatively on that. So we'll go 2 and just under 2 and just under, or just around about 1.2, and that will then give us a bit of downward cutting to do. But it's better that we do that and get it exactly right. Is that clean as clean can be? And somewhere I have got a sanding board. No, it should be flat. Sort of, right over there. Groovy, thank you. Small space. And we're going to get a marker. Yes, so obviously I'm not on camera, but when we're off camera, I'll tell you about my resigning from bands and things recently. So I'm footloose and fancy free at the moment in that respect. I'm going to go 1.2. It's not massively accurate, this thing. I mean, it's not bad, but we sort of eventually reach the limits of its measuring power. Basically, we're just going to get a bit of a gradient down here. And that's probably conservative-ish to the inside of the line. But gives us a good idea. And then theoretically, once we got there, the remainder should be just cutting down with slots. Sometimes if there's enough to take off, it might even be worth putting that in a bandsaw, but realistically this is not that much. So what I just do is I kind of start at this end and I press down heavy, and then the aim is to sort of get it balanced up across the nut, so that then we're just doing roughly the same amount all the way. And sort of level it up, and then the main thing is then removing the rest but retaining the 90 degrees, and that's just a matter of doing it, stopping, checking it, and if you're wandering off, counteracting the wander. Getting down near enough, perhaps tilting a bit back that way, so in which case I would just push the weight a bit forward, purely by feel really, and then relaxing that once you feel like you've locked it forward far enough. Got them roughly 90 degrees back there, perhaps a tiny bit acute over there, and it heading that way, so a bit more down on this end first. Quite often I do that, scrape the hell out of my fingers. Yeah, not too bad. And just straighten that out. Often I've got a second bit of paper down here and just switch over to the mild grade, but I haven't got that one to hand just now, so I will trust we'll get this down where we want to go. Now it's interesting, that's got a different height altogether, but that's what our measurement tells us, so it tells me that it may well be possible. No, that's a lie. What was that not sitting? I have a feeling that might not have been sitting correctly in the slot then. Oh, how about that? See? That's why I never like to do it from the bottom up. It's absolutely no, that should have sat right. Bugger. Let's have a look. What's that one gonna do? See, look, that one just. Am I missing something here? Is there a deeper hole than I thought at this end? Or is it even not, is it not even flat? Is there a hill going on here? That's weird. Maybe I should have kept the original and just cut that down. Okay, so here's a custom one. I was kind of hoping not to have to sort of make a completely custom thing time-wise. It's slowing me down. That's the only thing when you have these unusual old guitars is you do have this thing where the nut slots are kind of odd. They've either been overcut, or they're too wide, or different from a standard guitar. Now, to me, that actually is I'd probably be better off starting with that and working my way down from that. So I'm put an angle on it. Look at that. Hand beveled or hand arched. Okay, now right now that's too tall, but it's not going to be massively too tall. Let's just check the spacings. They're a custom spacing, but they look about right. Okay, just make sure that's square, make sure that's clean on the front edge. Clean on the front edge. So the thing about this is if I go with this to begin with, then everything from that point onwards is just cutting down and then get to reshape the nut afterwards. Outside. Better not be a horsefly. That's close enough. Okay, so yeah, that's better off going down. That's the beauty of being able to use an adjustable though, is that we can we can just wind it up and down without all this kerfuffle. Let's have a look. close up. Sorry about that, camera. My magic arm. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is just blob a bit of glue on here and get a move on. It actually probably ends up being easier to cut down than it is to try and cut upwards, make them, you know, not get it right and go again. So to get this right, we want this edge flush, absolutely, and overcut that edge. Get out of the way, get out of the way. So between now and St Ives, what have you got planned?
We're not doing anything this week because Al, the drummer, and Stewie, they're both away. I'm on holiday next week, but I'm back Friday for rehearsal. So we haven't got any more gigs booked until St Ives, unless anything crops up. Right. And then Barry's actually on holiday from the 30th of July to the 9th of August, so I think there's a couple of Fridays there. I think it's the 2nd of August, possibly the 9th of August, and we'll be rehearsing.
With Barry?
No, without Barry.
Right.
With someone called Sam.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha.
So I got it all written down anyway. Because we've got an online calendar now that we can sort of, you know, keep up with what's going on with everybody.
Okay, I'm going to put this under tension. Sorts. Don't worry about the action down this end. Yeah, we do actually want to worry about the action. Let's drop this all the way down.
Yeah.
Get it as close as we can. But the problem with this is it's oh. It'd be nice to change this because this is all slotted screws, which makes it difficult to manipulate. Now, right now, I don't care about the intonation part. What I care about is having these saddles clear of the anchor screws, so I can drop them to the correct action. Right, that should be about that. So the other chaps, were they happy about doing it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Yeah, it was funny seeing the Edge Festival in Tavistock playing the other day, which I was supposed to have been playing.
Okay.
So kind of funny seeing it going on. Or I didn't go in there, but there's bits on social media that, you know, people going, oh, down at this brilliant Edge Festival thing. And it's a shame because a year ago when we did it, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I remember you saying about that. Yeah.
And it wasn't going to work for me this time around for musical difference reasons, as people usually say. Right, now let's get back to the tuning. Here at this point, I'm hoping they just don't break. Okay, crudely speaking, that's good enough. Now let's get this bit done, and then once we have a sense that it will play, we can replace all the bits and pieces.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's this main thing. So we'll go with. So there's quite a lot to take down. So what I prefer to do with that is to use my sort of heavy-duty earth-moving equipment. Now, actually, I'm also got an issue where this one needs to come across a little bit. So the first thing I'll do is a custom nut, so it hasn't, I've put the spacing on myself, and I can just see a little discrepancy here. So what I'll do is, on this one, I'm just going to widen out this space, so I can target dead on the middle of it, because there's quite a bit to go down. So it'll be more like fraction to the side of that. So it's quite cool when you can sort of, you've got enough room to reconsider and avoid, you know, previously made slots. So we're kind of starting fresh, and often you tend to find the thing will try and go back to where it wants to go, providing there's not a slot for it to sort of fall into, which there still is here. But I've got a chap bringing there you go, an Epiphone Ultra. I don't know if you've seen those. They've got 2 outputs on them or something.
That's right, yeah.
I'm bringing that for a refret tomorrow.
All right, be interesting.
So I guess, I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing this. You could carry on all the way down with this, moving loads of earth, or you can get hold of that spot there and then kind of get in the middle and work down. Now, the problem with a point is you can go one way or another, and it can result in you going off to the side. So in a way it would be, that's still on pretty good position, but in a way what would be ideal is to be able to use that all the way down to just where you want. Let the thing sit at the bottom and then just do the final you know, cutaways with the that's not the one I want, with the actual nut file. The one I want has now vanished. The one that I want. Okay, so this is using these jeweler's files. This is sort of heavy earth moving equipment, and we get down close to where we want, and then once I'm there, ooh, that really broke. Once I'm there, I'll end up using the actual nut file. Again, I can sort of go right down with this brutal thing, tilting backwards, and that will just align itself nicely wherever it needs to go. And then any one of these. Make the slot, check it in, check it for spacing, and then sort of continue it. So right away, I haven't used a single expensive nut file yet in all of this process. This has all been done courtesy of cheap jeweler's files to get the depth right. I'm just going to widen this out a bit. This is kind of often what will happen when I'm making a custom nut anyway. The only thing in its favour with bone is that it is very predictable in the way it cuts, which is why I like it.
Yeah.
You know, you can depend on it. If you build up experience of cutting it, you sort of know when it's doing what it needs to do. Other materials I've found, there you go, we're almost there. Other materials are much less predictable or dependable. They tend to sort of cut in fits and starts, which means you can be kind of working your way down here. Suddenly you're overcut and you've wasted your time and you're back to square one.
Definitely.
Which is an absolute pain in the what's it. Again, we're going to use the centre point of this as the start point for a ditch. Now see that's sort of moved a bit off to one side, so I need to kind of gravitate towards the other side. There we go, it's closer. There you go, down the line. So it's a bit kind of touchy-feely to begin with, until you get, you know, you're pretty sure you're on target. Now you'll see there's tons of like shark's teeth sticking up above there, but they won't matter once we cut them all back after the the fine tuning's done. And get rid of all of that stuff above the above the action that we've gone for. It's sort of irrelevant stuff really. Okay, So I'm going to just try and go straight down on this one. It seems to be on target. Let's get a test on it. Yep. Fiddly, time consuming. Somebody asked me yesterday, for example, was I selling the adjustable nuts?
Oh, right, okay.
And the thing is, the answer is kind of, well, I could do, but they'd still need to do quite a bit of precision work. You wouldn't have to do this work, but you'd have to do cutting it to precisely fit the slot on your guitar, which would, not out of people's ability range, but it's like, what's the point in a way if you have to do another hour's worth of very careful cutting work, which is what I have to do to fit it. But the extra time that it involves for me to fit it is actually saved in this time that I don't have to. So I get a kind of pay back in time saved. But I think it's kind of difficult to see how it would be time saved for a customer who had to do all this shaping of the basic milliput nut unit, because they're all different sizes. You know, everybody's slot here is a different dimension, so kind of difficult to. I mean, I'll sell somebody something as close fitting as possible, but I suspect they're still going to have to get hold of a flat board, some tape, and do the whole fine tuning, which would be a bit tough if they overcut it. Then they would, they'd be back to square one. They wouldn't. They'd have to build another one or get another milliput base from me. I saw somebody selling one of those brass inserts that came from the original original Gibson Les Pauls, and it's somebody saying a little bit marked, but will clean up. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not going to clean up. Right. So at this point now, I grab me nut files one by one, and I aim to go down to the correct height and round out the bottom of the slot with these little things for the sort of fine touch. Now I'm still quite a way off, so I can go back to the heavy lifting business. A lot of time goes into this, but as you know, once it's right, that's it. It'll change the whole way the guitar plays. As the temperature goes up, it's 25 degrees in here. Black hole of
fantastic tropical weather.
Black hole of Lamerton. So we also get to a point now where it's almost so much cutting, so deep a slot that it's it's taking longer to cut because it's going down on the shoulder of the down into the shoulder of this notch. So it'd be better.
But in a way, that's not a bad idea really, because it's sort of slowing you down naturally, isn't it? And for someone like me, anyway.
Yeah. These I have to say, these nut files are not as good as they used to be, or as people make them out to be. Right. They're the ends clog up quite quickly. And they're actually not razor sharp to begin with. But they do the job, and so long as they kind of clean the shape, round out the bottom. And I've put them on old blades with tape and glue and stuff just to keep them straight. It's my way of making them last a bit longer, because if you don't do that, they'll buckle and snap before. Now I'm going to kind of stop for there. That's probably good enough for normal humans. So hang them up.
Definitely.
Grab the next one, and away we go. It's always good to have these kind of close-ish to real tension if you're doing this, to make sure that the things actually sit down in the slots. Sometimes they try and clean out these with a bit of a wire brush too. Yeah, because sometimes they can, if you're not careful, there's a risk that they get stuck in the slot, and you think you've got it to the right depth, and then later on when you put it under tuned tension, pops down in the hole.
That's it, end of story.
You're on the fret,
yeah,
which is an absolute pain. I'm going to do a bit more with this to get to where I want to go. The old thing of how much is, you know, a touchy-feely thing, really. I suppose with experience you just get the feel of most of the time when it's ready, and there are occasions when you will overcut even still. I find that happens a lot with plastics, nuts, different kinds of plastics, because what happens is nothing will happen for a while.
And then all of a sudden, that's
and
it.
You'll put a bit more force in and bang, you'll be down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So this is very close to being done. So I just will do a little tiny bit more and back off. It'll be a million times better than it was. Yeah. I mean, even these, you know, these are little details we could tweak later on, but let's put that one back up there. Next one. And the other thing about it, when you're doing a nut that has a lot of depth that way, it's amazingly easy for what you think to be a straight line through there to actually be slightly curvy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that slight curve robs you of the clearance you might have had often. You know, you get a little bit of clearance around up the slot.
Yeah.
And as soon as it has a wiggle, your fraction of clearance you got with your string gauge, your correct gauge files, just gets. I can't go that way. Sometimes I wish I'd break that off. That little bit of unnotched there. It's getting in the way of me using this bit. But yeah, so you can, any tiny bit of microscopic wiggle, and before you know it, that clearance that you had, you know, if you bought a 9 gauge set and you're using them, tiny wiggle, and your 9 gauge is now too tight for 9 strings. So I learned that the hard way, and so from now on, all I do is I use a set of 11s, pretty much for everything.
Yeah.
And it gives me enough clearance on a 9 gauge to allow for a little bit of this wiggling business. Actually, these aren't far off. I'm gonna hold them where they are for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to take any risks of overdoing it.
Cool.
And it's going to be a million times better. Now down at this end, still too high, really. It's a shame. It'd be so much nicer to have that. But I mean, it's an immense improvement on what it was. We have a tiny bit of leeway. I mean, these aren't exactly on the deck, but they're not far off. So if we go down to the absolute bottom out, which was where we may have to live, we've got these huge great grub screws now sticking a mile up in the air. But I'm gonna try and do it as absolutely low as possible with just a hint of radius here, and see where we get away with. I think we might just be all right. I had an interesting question on YouTube the other day, and a guy was saying, you know how all the people on YouTube use these files, gauges they put under the strings with a curve, radius gauge,
right?
And then they kind of lower the strings until they touch them. And somebody said, how do you not need that? I don't understand it. It's just not possible. And they go, well, if you do set your saddles here by virtue of a measurement up from here, and if that object there has a curved radius, and you go 1 mil up, or you know, whatever it is, 1.2, what did I do? 1.5, let's say. 1.5 up from that point, puts it there. 1.5 from the next point, which is a bit higher, puts it there. 1.5 from that, and it will be, the finished result will be in a radius following the radius. So for example, if you did it exactly the same, right, there's the radius of the fret, right, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, 1.5 there, and that follows radius, right?
Yeah, of course it does.
Except where I want to go from 1.5 to 1.2, and it goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? But it's still pretty much mapping the radius. So, but it's some people just can't get their heads around.
I know. Yeah.
Tea makers having a break. See you later. Yeah, it's and people, it's really hard to get their heads around. They go, but it can't work like that. How do you? So I think that's about as good as we're going to get. So let's kill the sacrificials get rid of them, and then we can also get a Dremel on this nut now to remove all the extraneous gubbins. So yeah, I finished all, this week was all about finishing all those custom built guitars, which was quite nice to catch up a backlog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing of building them and going, oh, I want to keep this one, but I can't. I've got enough.
So how many have you got for sale now then?
In total, including some oak casters from before, I've probably got 9, something like that in total.
Wow.
But there are sort of 4 non-oak castery new ones. There's the Tintin one,
yeah.
there's the headless Telecaster
Yeah.
one, there's the old Telecaster one with a really dark U on it, and then there's the Telecaster parts caster you played just now, and then there's a Trekkie one, the little Eckie and mahogany, African mahogany travel guitar, which as you can see, I've got another one, left-handed one, brewing down there. They just you know, I'd you know, like when we went and played at Ian's the other day, you know, my the LP Les Paul wasn't working, so I just went straight to that one, and it was perfectly fine. You know, I'd play it all day long.
Yeah.
So I just keep thinking I don't need too many. I've got plenty of choice. And behind the white bag is the blue metal bag. I think I probably should get rid of a bit of the should we get rid of a bit of the gunk on here if I'm going to take a bit of dust off as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not too extreme, but it is a bit. So I'll just take a risk of wiping off some DNA using naphtha, and we'll take a sample down to the lab and we'll get them to create some long extinct teenagers or something. That's what all these guitars are covered in, aren't they? Some teenage bedroom vibes.
Oh, don't go there.
No, we've all been teenage boys. We know how horrible it is. But I just sort of get a little bit of get the surface layer off, and we could probably do more and more of this. A lot of this is actually wear into the maple anyway, so that will remain, and you'll see the grooves.
Yeah.
It's nice old proper road worn stuff. Now what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to get you to do some fret polishing.
Yeah.
We're using one of those little fret polisher strips and some fret rubbers, so we're not going to do any fret leveling or anything on this. We're going to trust in nature's own natural leveling, which often you get with these old guitars, that they've been played to a level of flatness, and the poor teenager who first owned them has gone through all the fret buzz and come out with frets that are finally self-leveled, basically, you could call it. Where's the fire to burn this rag? It's like I need a hospital gown disposal system. Right, let's give it a little clean. I'm not going to be the most thorough clean in the universe, but yeah, get rid of some of the stickiness that one can feel. Same on this body. I mean, it's just, it's got a home paint job on it, but we'll just wipe a bit of the dust off. Nice, isn't it? Proper grooves.
The proper grooves, isn't it?
I mean, it would be a rare find, this neck, actually, because like I say, most of these Marlins, their necks were totally ruined by this time. I've thrown every single one away that I've ever had. They're just not even worth trying to save, because they're so badly out of shape. But this one is a rarity, which is nice to see. So, if you were desperate for a neck to upcycle, but leave the sort of mojo playware on it, you could do worse than stick with this.
Yeah, you could.
Right, stick that back on the shelf there next to the glues somewhere. Right, so just for fun, right, I think I was going to say it's so much easier to replace these with Star. These are kind of like, I don't think these are original, these look like home, you know, DIY hardware screws. But they obviously make doing up and undoing a bit more pain in the... Now with this bridge, it's acting, you're going to have it as a hard tail, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So in which case, what I want to do is pull off one of these here. Oh God, will I? I'd like to pull off one of these saddles and just get you to measure its width while I'm doing this other bit. Problem is, if this is one of these narrow gauges, then we may have a problem replacing this one because they're quite rare. So you can give that a look. And then I've got some
10.5.
Oh, okay, that's not so bad. It is. That's a narrow gauge. Let me see the spacing. The problem with these old guitars is they come in at these vintage spacings, in which case, basically, there isn't much replacement saddles you can use. It's 52. Right. This box here, have a dig in there and see if you can find any saddles in sets that are on anything that look half decent. That's 10.5 width. Again, you know, you have to say that those details, in a way, the saddles bits are again less instrumental in how it plays than the action stuff that we're sort of taking care of with the nut and the, you know, the overall height.
Yeah.
You know, you could leave the original crappy saddles and it would still sound pretty, play pretty well, or a lot better than it did. So this is there was the Marlin Stingrays were, God, where were they made? I don't know if they were Japanese made or Chinese made. Oh, this is interesting. This has got strap buttons for left and right-handed playing. Yeah, they were plywood, a lot of them. But this one is strangely solid wood. Oh God, yeah. Look at your East German switches. They're a little bit. Oh, your pickup's a screw. Look.
Oh right.
Right. The magnets have dropped off the pickups. Right, hold on. Okay.
All right.
Right. Let's just do something here because this ain't going to work. That's your bridge, your tremolo claw. We'll take care of that in a minute. So here, noisy. Here we have the East German pots. Weird looking things. A little plastic enclosed switch. I mean, it all works, but it's a little capacitor down here. Wow. You know, so it's all weird stuff. It's not your standard stuff. The magnet's dropped off here. This one's broken. Oh no, it's moved. Okay, and that one's moved. So we could get some. We'll get some resin going, and we'll stick all these back on. What I don't instantly know from here is which way round this thing should be. And I don't have particularly clever means of finding out. So do I know which side was glued? Yes, I think it was that side. Do I know which side it should be, this way or this way? That I don't know. There we go. I don't know. I'm not going to know which way around this polarity should be. That will be interesting. You might get an out of phase effect out of this. I mean, the simplest way would be, of course, to replace all the pickups, but any of those match the size? Yeah. Okay. Well, set about undoing. Have they got grub screws in them? It looks like it. Yeah. Yeah. Right, pull off a whole set while I mix up a bit of resin to stick these magnets down. As I say, I know which side that should be on, but as far as anything else about which way up or down it should go, we're just guessing, I'm afraid. And the last of the clear, cheap resin, which I keep plenty of. It's very, very handy. On a day like today, it would go off in seconds. tons of those bridges now. Plenty leftovers. Okay, so lift that up that way round. Hey, dropped it on my hand. Brilliant. It's a bit too sticky. Don't want that doing that. Gloop. Get on there. Helps to hold it in place with a bit of magnetism.
How's your dad?
He's all right. He's all right. I got yeah, I guess people. I don't really talk about it too much on video, or haven't been on video to talk about it much. But it's been a pretty hard last few weeks waiting for my mum to get some results in, because some people on YouTube subscribers will know that she's had cancer.
Yeah.
Pretty bad, stage 4 stuff. And anyway, she was kind of recovering, and then she had a fall and broke her back. And then she had a fall and broke her hip, and in between all this chemo stuff and whatever. And anyway, so after all of that, she was sort of beginning to kind of get there just about. And then she wasn't feeling great, and she was wondering why. And then she went for a scan, and she had some shadows on her lung and her liver, which is where the cancer originally went to. And they've done operations, but it looked like it might be coming back. So she spent the last 3 weeks in horrible state, not knowing, and she got the results yesterday, and it's clear. So yeah, so it's good news on that front. Brilliant. For sure. Very, very surprised to find that. Pleased. Let's put the soldering iron on, because we're going to stick a new wire on for the claw, for the bridge. Bridge thing, you know what I mean. Okay, so these are going to take a few minutes to set. It shouldn't be too long before they're locked in place. Yeah, it was funny when the first time I saw these. It was definitely not the standard Chinese stuff. And it turns out these were made in East Germany, which is an amazing thing, that a country that no longer exists. So if you want bin that, put that back in the box, and then we'll take these other ones out. I mean, we could have changed the whole thing since it's locked down, but it's quite a large unit and it's already in place, so we might as well leave the original one where it is. These have got to come off with another annoying flat-headed screwdriver. Oops, I don't want these to fall down. Yeah, so that was a mighty relief yesterday. So she's I haven't had a chance to speak to her yet, but I think she was kind of looking at a sort of checking out phase, in her mind, and now she's, I guess, got a sense of, I've got more time. I could not live it up exactly, but I can plan for more than a couple of months, which is really great. It's that waiting phase is horrible. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so I'm just removing these old ones, and we keep the locking screw, the holding screws as well, the adjusting screws, because I don't want these little flat screwdriver things. We can do away with those and revert back to Phillips. Well, with regards to the band, then let me know when a rehearsal.
Oh yeah. So I've got it all written down indoors there. So. Okay.
Right. Old goo. Right. That's kind of nearly there. Let's put a bit of cleaner on it. And then I'll put the bridge back here together again, and then you can do the. While I'm doing that, you can do the fret polishing once up and down with the. I've got two grades of fret rubber, which improve it a little bit. I mean, they're flat as anything, so it's not gonna kind of make much difference to that. Okay, these are starting to dry, Right there. They're all going through. If there's anything sticky, there's a little pot of grease next to the white tub over there. I often dip them in that before, make sure they go. I do that with those Chinese headless bridges. I do that with every single one. I take them apart.
Take them apart and make sure it's all well lubed. Yeah.
I've only had one faulty. I've had a couple that have arrived damaged because they didn't fit and put them together properly in the factory, and I've had come to an agreement with the manufacturer. But generally speaking, I've had only one that's faulted out of about 10, and that was because I think by accident the owner over tightened the little units on the back, and there's a risk if you do that and then continue tightening, you can get a sort of, it bites up into the cog and strips the thing. Anyway, I mean, the good part about that is I've taken it off, reconditioned the cog, just taken off any burrs, and it's still working fine for me. So,
fine.
Right, I'm going to put a bit of extra ground wire on this thing. I don't want to use that because I was keeping that for a reason, so I'll use a bit of white. That should be enough. So this is like James May taking apart or putting together that Stratocaster that time.
Oh,
remember? There's only so much I guess you can cover in that short length of that program, but it was quite a good, quite a noble attempt. Right, tin this, tin that. This reminds me of the insides of a Russian TV I had once. Not for watching. I acquired it in some junk shop or something. Yeah. And it was an amazing little portable inverted commas TV, which in a way was anything but portable. It was, you know, this kind of. Well, I guess it was a 1980s Russian TV, which, you know, would have been way out of. You know, way out of. It would have looked ancient compared to what we bought in the West. But anyway, but I really loved it because it opened up, and the way it opened up is you took out some screws, and then before you know it, this thing opened up into a little carriage, and the whole sort of carriage then came apart so that you could dismantle it or repair it. So the whole of the factory process of assembling it was there, with little bits of string tied on by ladies, presumably on the factory line, where they put the little doors of the carriage together, you know, all the little circuits, and it was all this kind of you know, Eastern Bloc, you know, wiring stuff. It was quite amazing. Now I'm going to go through here with this, my new earth wire, just to keep it out of the way, because the little previous one was too short. It didn't allow any movement. Drop this down here, and I'm going to, if it's all right with you, I'm going to replace these with standard Phillips rather than those flathead things, because they are cool. Go to the mixed pickguard screws. Let's see what we got. Used. Where's the used pickguard screws? Clean old pickguard screws. We won't put brand new stuff on, but we'll use clean old stuff. Just keep its original mojo. Okay, is that sitting all right? What's that sitting up on? Ow! That's got to go through there. That's a little bit tricky. Get on there. That's better. Okay, old pickguard screws. Torque setting 1. Go. So much easier. Alright, so your end of the game. Grab hold of one of they. Hold it in there with 2 hands.
Done this before.
Heavy duty, light one.
Oh, right, okay.
So one, maybe if you want to, or just do one, whatever you can be bothered to do. For Barry, sorry Barry if you're watching this. Are you worth 2 runs of the fret rubbers. That's not very good. Try another one. So, Thomas is still in America.
Oh right, okay.
He went off. He went off to spend time. He went to a wedding of some friends he'd only ever met online. How about that for a modern age thing?
Well, there you go.
You know, he'd spent obviously millions of hours online playing with these people in various games.
Yeah.
But yeah, it transpired. They invited him out to this wedding because it's an incredible thing to become friends with somebody you've never actually seen in real life.
Absolutely fantastic, isn't it?
And off he went, and he's been having a whale of a time.
Good.
So hoping that when he gets back, he'll be dissatisfied with knocking about the house.
Yeah.
And want to go out and do something really go-getting.
That's right. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, it's usually the way, isn't it? You get a taste of real life and want to go and live a bit more.
Yeah.
So he'll have been away in total for a whole month and a half.
Oh right.
That's like
bloody hell.
Clearly we're not charging enough rent. We can afford to do that. Let's stick these odd little things in here in case they ever come in handy. Okay, so I'm going to reassemble the saddles. Don't fit the saddles. Ideally with these things it would be so much better if they had the little short ones, and a lot of people say, you know, you can cut these off and shorten them. My experience of doing that is you end up spending forever grinding and sanding down the edge of the grub screw, because it won't go back into the screw thread, and if it does, it then cross threads it and stuff, and you can just be an absolute far more of a pain in the ass than just leaving these things stand up. And you know, if for example Barry wanted a lower set of grub screws, then you can go and buy, for a few quid, you can buy a set of 6 12 shortened ones which fit much better. But I occasionally have to cut down screws like this, grub screws for things, and it really is a pain in the absolute backside, because you go and cut it and then you have to spend forever randomly and hopefully sanding the cut edge to regain the start point of the thread, because you've taken it off usually when you've done the thing, when you've done the cut, and it's absolutely no guarantee that it works, and you can keep going. You know, it can take 10 minutes for a single screw to be grub screw to be refitted. So while it sounds good, I've never had the patience for it, frankly. Okay, so I'm going to sort of start these off at roughly. See that this is annoying. You see this? That screw's too long, and it's going to cut off the string as it comes through. To where this.
Oh right, yeah.
It's always the way. Now I am going to have to cut this, which I bloody well hate, because I haven't randomly got any short. I don't think I've got any short screws kicking around immediately to hand, but it is a royal pain, because I will now possibly be forced to do that cutting, and then as a result I'll be forced to then try and sand it back to get it to work. I have one or two slightly shorter ones that I probably now can't find. Oh, I might be able to. Help me, please. No, these will be slotted, damn it. I might have to settle for that. I apologise in advance. I may have to do a combination of Phillips and slots for the length, because like I said, I can't be stuffed to sand them down. But there's a little shorter one, you see. But the problem is, if you see how the string through hole, let's say that's the best possible start point, right? Typically it's going to be anywhere back there, right? It all looks all great, and then you bring it back, and the first thing that happens is and this one it's not too bad, but your screw comes through. Now look on this one. If I start to go to there, before you know it, that's going to in danger of cutting off Now it will be on this one, so now I have to go to the different screw altogether and do it with a slotted screwdriver, which is now almost impossible to manipulate at this angle. It's almost as bad as working with a tune-o-matic bridge, but not quite. This doesn't quite like the pitch of the thread either. It's going to have to cut its way a little bit. There we go. It's a little stiffer, but it does just about work. Oh. No pain in the backside. How you doing?
All right.
Yes. So basically, we won't change. We'll leave the electronics as they are.
Yep.
I might, like I say, I might make up some resin or something to let it go semi-set, and then we'll press those on while it's in the sort of not totally stiff position, if you excuse the expression, matron. So this will just about get on, but I can't use the. I have to replace the screws on these other two. Pain. Yeah, and I think this will feel very different, even if it doesn't sound much different. That's the main thing. What's this one? Oh, hang on, now this one, somehow I've managed to get a cross-threaded screw. Oh, that's good. Hooray! So far, I've only had to use one flat-headed. Oh good, these are the ones I wanted to find anyway. Better. Yeah, so I've got the chap's bringing his Epiphone Ultra tomorrow for a refret, and I've got, interestingly, got a day and a half to do it because I think he's sticking around in the neighbourhood.
All right.
And I tend to try and be cautious of putting, I don't like to put too many time limits on.
Yeah.
But in this case I will. But I think a day and a half should be enough. But my only nervousness is that it doesn't give. Sometimes if you get a fret that just will not seat and you have to re-fret occasionally, I'll go to that length if I have to get it right. And if you're on that short deadline, you don't have the time to do that. But I think what I have to say is that reserve the right that if it doesn't work out, then I post it on.
Yeah.
Post it on up. Okay, now this one is struggling. Doesn't want to cut. Doesn't want to go into this thread here for some reason. Come on, you can do it. There we are. I don't mind wasps, I just don't want horseflies. Damn thing. Right. In you go. That should be good. Okay. That is preloaded at roughly the right sort of place, assuming that this neck is in the right position.
Yeah.
I had an interesting one the other day on.
I read that.
Yeah. What was it? T4, wasn't it? Yeah. I years ago. It was ages ago that I'd done you know, upcycled the neck and done all that stuff. And then it was only, you know, a year had passed, and I came to put it all together, and I assumed when I'd upcycled the neck, I hadn't thought about it. I just hadn't thought to measure it for any reason. I didn't need to at the time. And then I came to put it on the guitar, put the bridge down in the correct place for the 648 measured scale length and all the rest of it, and it wouldn't intonate. And I just suddenly realised, hang on, check the actual bridge measurement. And it turned out that it was 4.5, nearly 5 millimeters too long. Thank you, China.
There you go.
Right, next bit of fun. We get one of these. This one was donated to Real Love Guitars by Stevie Waterworth. Big Steve.
Alright, Big Steve, you've done the 7-stringer for him, didn't you?
Yep, and he sent me this ages ago saying, I don't think I can use it, but if you ever get a chance. Lo and behold, that one, kind of the old Claire and mine one, conked out, and ended up using this one, and it's cool. nice and quiet too, with adjustable speed.
Yeah.
So stand by for the sound of bone, burning bone. Pretty horrible stink actually, but one of the things is I often, you know, had to think, how do I get the edge of this flush? And actually, I've never been able to do it better than using a Dremel.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, even though you'd think that a hand file would be more delicate, blah blah blah. But in my experience, is if you use a hand file, you always end up hitting the lacquer down there. And for some reason, this is just able to stop just before you do, for some reason. I don't know why it's such a good tool for that, but it seems to be. There you go, almost as good as it will get. And then this bit of fun. Take it down. All right. Could really go on more and more, but that'll do really for now. Yeah, you could go on as much as you wanted to, providing there's just enough above. Sometimes what I do, if I'm not happy with the feel of that or the look of that, then you can just take a nice big file, and again you've got quite a lot of control, and you can see what you're doing. And keep going until you've got just enough. This is quite nice for putting a flatter look on it. But again, it's all about keeping away from the frets. Obviously, that's your main dexterity. It's got to be that. And then if you get down to where you like it, put a bit more finer cut on it. Okay.
Cool.
Well, so regarding tuners, I mean, vintage style, they do the job, right? You know, they're I don't really see much advantage in changing them out for something that, you know.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
As long as the slots are right,
yeah,
and you've got the intonation right here, we should be good.
Yeah.
Let's try it. I've never seen this brand of string before in my life, so. Orphe. Persist in one's old ways, full of personality. There you go. That's your little Chinese proverb for you. Don't forget that. Alright? Persist in one's old ways, full of personality. Which I interpret as don't let them change you. Stick to your rebel nature. I think it's a kind of directly trying to appeal to teenagers. Yeah, stick it to mum and dad. I also think were these shorter than normal strings? I can't remember. Oh, I've got to, don't let me forget to stick the ground wire on. So, yeah, little quick lightning refurb. Taking care of probably the most important things you could take care of in the short order.
Yeah.
Which is the playing action,
yeah,
and the nut,
yeah,
and providing those work, and that you know there aren't any major fret problems, then it'll transform how it feels. Often, you know, the danger is, of course, you might find that the action is cranked up really high because you know it's hiding a bunch of fret problems, but we can't be sure. These are of the age that they tend to have worn them out, you know, by that time, so it tends to be less problems, but we don't know. Looks kind of alright.
It's alright. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I've got that Adams West tone on the floor down there. That's you see it now? This one I stripped down on the floor somewhere behind that piece of template ply. Stripped it back, took all the sparkly blue paint off it, and it's an 8-piece body. Can you believe it? You know how people.
Oh,
well, you know how people go on about Matsumoko or whatever the factory. You know, I mean, they're well respected Japanese factory of the 80s,
yeah,
and you know, for sure enough, a load of those guitars are absolutely brilliant. And who would have thought that would have, you know, being made of 8 pieces? I bet that might put some made in Japan fans into a bit of a spin.
Yeah.
You know.
No doubt about that.
Well, can you still say it's the best manufacturer? 8 pieces. Yeah, and it's.
Never heard of that before. 8 pieces.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a sandwich, top and bottom, first of all.
Yeah.
And then it's slots as well on top of that, down you know, lengthwise. So it's really loads of spare bits of wood being used up, sensibly, I guess. But
wow,
we shall see. I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't have enough love invested in those West tones to, you know, to kind of do them like a vintage car refurbishy type approach. So I don't know. Some people have said it looks quite nice even in that sort of war-torn state. So I sort of have a feeling that I might just, you know, put some pickups in it, make it work nicely. I mean, the thing is, I'm going to refret the neck anyway, because it's like that trickle down thing. If it doesn't work as a headstock guitar, then I've always got a nicely refretted neck for a headless build, or, you know, another build. So I never lose out. If the neck's decent, I can always use it for something else. But it came with Tesla pickups. Have you ever seen them? Active coil things. They're supposed to be quite some big deal in the world of pickups. You know, maybe in the 80s they were or something. But they have a sort of preamp circuit built into them or something. Okay. But again, you know, they're active, so they require a 9-volt circuit, which I don't know, something about me, I'm too lazy to put batteries in guitars. Do you know what I mean? I just want to pick them up and plug them into little battery powered amps, and if they work, that's your guitar. But, so we've seen under the hood, we know it's East German, it's familiar East German manufacture with weird weird pots and things that you won't see out of China at all. They were definitely of the Soviet bloc, with a little paper and oil capacitor, again very typical of its region, and pickups where the magnets had dropped off, which probably didn't help. Mind you, who knows? Oh, and a spare hex key stuck.
That's right, yeah.
I'm not going to laugh because I've done that. I often ended up with things you didn't expect stuck to magnetic things. Hey. Da, da, da. Oh yeah, I was lucky. I found that in some old thing, and I'm going to use that on my next MG SG style, which is just right because the body isn't wide enough to use a standard. Stick that in the metal department. Okay, still a bit of softening required on that nut edge. It's a little bit wider than it needs to be there, but it's more that there's a curve down there. But it's only cosmetic. Yeah, I will never know whether this is actually, the neck on this is actually glued onto the body. I have a sneaking suspicion that it might be, so it may be never worth finding out. You know, we can just assume that it is, and don't trouble. Let's try. Let's see, somebody's done that behind there as a way of simplifying it. Let's borrow from them then, because these claws are the hardest thing to stick solder to, because they act as a giant heat sink. They just don't want to hold any solder at all. Oh bugger, let's put that down a bit. So having a little spare wire tucked in behind it is actually quite handy. If I could get some solder on there so it doesn't just drop off all the time. Well, I can't, and it does. So come on. Left-handed, right-handed. Ow. That hurt. Right. Well, these springs aren't doing anything, so it doesn't have to worry about touching that or moving. I forgot to do something on here. Go down there. Can't keep it out of the way. Can you do a favour and just hold that string sort of down there a bit while I take a little ride down here. Bit of fret sprout over the ears. If you can do without. Missed. still a little sharp on these edges, which we can take care of with some of these. A little bit of work with this one. Thanks. So it's a bit that's sharp. It's either upwards on this edge, or it's on these little tang edges here that overhang. And it's a shame because when you soften them off, it spoils the otherwise perfect geometric look of the thing. But it's down to whether you want the little spiky bits sticking into you or not. So my pa's all right. They're celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary this week.
Cool.
So we've got family coming down tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it still could be softer, but
That's alright.
You know, it's sort of a limit to what we can do. What we can do is I can go down it with a 600 block in a little while. Yeah, so going to pick up my half brother tomorrow, who's coming down from Manchester. We have a strange multi-part family, and go and get him at the bus stop in Plymouth, and then a few other friends of theirs are coming down from away for a dinner on Saturday, I think, which I have to have the whole of the refret for that tap done before that. So this is actually, there's no burr there, it's just on the edge of those little bits, which I'll get into. Yeah, but otherwise all right.
Good.
I think he's finally accepted that he lives in Tavistock now and not Coventry. But my stepmom's done an amazing job
certainly sounds like it,
transforming the house. I mean, it's it's only 6 months or something, and it's fully lived in, and all the jobs done, all the conversion bits done. She's gone at it like a madwoman. I'm not sure she knows how to relax, but she says she is going to. If at home this still looks sharp, I'd suggest get a little bit of foam with a 600 grit. Yeah. And still continue to do the pull the string back and just do some of this. Let it just roll over a little bit onto the edges, so it hopefully takes a little bit of that kind of sharpness off it. It's all this the way, if you end up cutting the frets with a beveling tool, it always puts a sort of mathematically precise edge on them. Oop. This puts a bit of dust on there as well, which we can take off with some stuff. So you can't avoid getting a sharp edge really because of the way it cuts the frets. If you want them flush, then you get this kind of mechanically blade-like edge, so a chisel edge really. No way around it. Okay. Now, a little bit more on the edge of this nut. So, get my double-sided file with the safe edge, and I'll just take off the sharp edge of there. And that soft edge allows you to work it on there, thankfully. That's a bit better. And surprisingly enough, there's a little bit at the back. String, wire, guitar, cable. Effects, no thanks. Clean, not too much reverb. Some not good notes up here, but we'll see what happens when we raise the action, because it is a bit low at this end now, which is fine. We know we've got room to go up, which is always a good thing. Whoop. Whoop. Don't ask me what that's doing. Oh dear. God knows what's going to happen there. Oh. Bollocks.
There you go.
Grab me one of those nines from there, would you? Useless. Cheap strings.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's raining nines.
It's raining nines. Thankfully they're spares, and I have sense of mind to buy a set with extra 3 spares.
Yeah.
Because I'm always busting them. But yeah, that's cheap strings for you. There you go. Orphe, persist in one's old way, full of personality and broken E strings. Oh well, at least it's better than a whole set of Ernie balls. But that's why you don't normally go for Chinese strings. Well, I know all the others might go the same way, but so this is not happy in the middle here. Now I'm looking at here, and on this side there's practically no relief, so I'm going to assume there's no relief, and I'm going to give a little crank in the direction of some relief if we can get a bit. We don't know, it may not work. Meanwhile, let's try and break the rest of the strings. So we'll probably improve that a little bit more. You look down here and we're barely over a millimetre, so that's pretty pretty low. So let's do that a little bit, and I'm going to just do these by eye in the other direction. slightly sticky grey threads on these, but that's okay. Ooh. Okay. Thankfully we might not have to move these too much because they look like their threads are a bit sticky down there. That'll do for now. Let's have a look. Obviously out of tune. We'll have 1.5, 1.25. Oh, it depends how you read this stupid thing. I'm going, that's just over 1, that's about 1, about 1, about 1, about 1. This one a tiny bit down. Apart from that, I think the others can pretty much stay where they are.
Yeah, I can play around with that anyway. That's cool.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
Not bad at all, Sam.
Better than it was, and it's
fuck
playable. Now let's have a bit of fun with some knobs. I don't think you'll ever want to use those pots again particularly.
No.
But let's see, we want volume, tone, tone in the similar colours. Volume, tone, 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 volume. Looks about right. Similar sorts of things. Now, the game will be, there's no way these don't fit anywhere near fit. So what we could do is stick some fast drying stuff in there, let it go a little bit stiff, and then just gently sink it on there and let it shape it, and then call it quits. And I think I've got the last tiny bit of goop that will do this, and we're done. And then it's time for another cup of tea.
Another cup of tea.
Stand by for the squelch. Ben. Okay, I've got to be careful with this. I've got some really good JB auto weld as well, but that takes 24 hours, so we'd have to be sitting down for ages waiting for it. This is in this whether this goes off fairly quickly, and it should be enough, short enough time to allow us to get away with it. One. Is that putting jam out on home cooking lesson? Oops, that's sunk all the way in. Actually, sometimes when you're doing this, you have to be quick enough to get it all in before it suddenly goes hard.
Yeah.
And then you've got no options. So this is nice. What I like about this is it's all sort of reused stuff, most of which I wouldn't have got to use again. You know, a lot of those bridge parts I just have hundreds of them, and occasionally, every once in a while, I just have to sort of chuck them out. And I do think about advertising to give them away, and then I realise it's just there's so much involved, and you know, it's a nice idea, but it's a lot of hassle to do it, and it, you know, it's low quality stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So out come the bubbles, hopefully. So the question is just about roughly when's the point at which it starts to go, and actually also just take off so we don't have too much. We don't want it all glooping down the side. We need just enough, I'm guessing, to take into account displacement. So something like that minus the bowl. Ah, no, it's a lot less, you bugger. should work.
Cool.
Yeah. Marlin Slammer. What year do you think? 1979, 78, something like that. Well, it's got to be East Germany before the wall came down. That's the first thing. So
yeah.
I think late 70s, something like this. I could be wrong. It might be early 80s, because you know the 80s were still very much you know, behind the Iron Curtain. It was still it was like 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everything was multiple years.
Yeah.
I had a friend at school who used to go to Poland. His family were Polish, and used to go to Poland every few years, and it was the strangest thing, because in those days people would go up to him in the street and offer to buy his jeans off him, and he'd sell his jeans for hard currency and dollars and stuff, and then come back with real money. And but the fact that you could go from the UK, this sort of free world, and go back to the Iron Curtain and kind of be part of food shortages and queues for necessities, you know, and then come back, and he'd come back to school and tell tales of life behind the Iron Curtain. It's like I couldn't get enough of it. I was fascinated. And then, of course, it all changed in one go, and all of that sort of mystery. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but the mysterious part of it's kind of gone. Yeah. So the idea of this would be to not so much stick these to there, is to try and just get them to seat on and form a shape around the thing without glooping downwards and covering everything. And I have no idea, by the way, in terms of the camera, I have no idea if it's going to work. But the only way of getting around that is to have screw-on knobs for that, which would be you know, to get metal knobs, and they wouldn't like strap knobs for a start.
Parts out, wouldn't we?
Yeah. And again, if you ever want to take these off and they don't want to come off, then you just basically break them off. Yeah. So this is starting to set now, so I'm going to do my usual thing of shoving it all around to the same start point, and we're going to go volume. Who knows? Tone. Might just spin completely.
Might do.
Might get absolutely nowhere with it. That might be seconds too late. Damn it. Might even be seconds too late. I haven't got any real way of making any more, putting any more weight on it apart from this.
No.
Down you go. You never know.
Just leave it.
Job done. No, I don't know how long that was, but a couple of hours max.
Yeah, I reckon.
1 hour 48 minutes,
there
ladies and gentlemen.
Cool.
A quick refurb of a Marlin Slammer. Got a decent action out of it. It's got nicely shined up frets. They're the same condition they were in height wise, but they're playable. The original pickups, new saddles, slightly high what's-its, and some stuck-on knobs, which may or may not work. But if they don't, switch the pots over, and you've got a workable thing. Probably we might just leave that for another bit of time. Right, thanks for watching. Hope that was vaguely interesting. A little bit of a refurb on an unexpected old dog.
Bye bye, peeps.